But you grew up in that house in Terang.
Yes.
Christmas Day, you would have been excited when you're opening your Christmas presents. Do you have that same feeling the day after the census results come out?
Oh, yes. Look, the last census, it's the 2016 census. I did this feature with The Australian, like an advent calendar. And for 30 days leading up, I had all these things about what I would expect to see in the census. Now, what I expect to see in the coming census in August of next year, the results are a year later, is the proportion of the entire Australian workforce, 15 million people, who work from home, who are reported working from home, will be 15%. That's my major prediction. In fact, no one's come out with another figure, but I just cannot see us going back to commuting. I mean, tell a millennial, look, great news, millennial, the pandemic's over. You can go back to commuting an hour a day from Cranbourne, from Penrith, from Caboolture into the city centre and back out again 5 days a week for the next 30 years of your career. They'll say a number of things in response to that, one of which will be, ain't doing it.
Yeah.
There's a better way to deliver workplace value, which brings me to another point around work. I can see in the 2030s, and work from home is part of that, this fusion of work with lifestyle, organising your work around your life, run your life around your work. So you actually have a study area where you work. You might work a 4-day week. You might job share. You might work, bolt on a few more days on your holiday and work from an exotic location. Being able to control where and how you work, does that help your lifestyle? And 28 million Australians say yes, it does. I want that.
Now we're seeing property prices continuing on their march upwards as the story of the wealth in this country, the 11th richest nation on the planet, as you told us earlier. How do you reconcile this aspiration with also the practicality of a mortgage that's potentially eating into 40% of the household income? Is the generational wealth and the bank of mum and dad, is that going to be part of solving that puzzle, or have we got some? Because that's aspirational. I mean, I'd want to work from home every day too, but there might be bills to pay.
Well, this idea of the cost of housing, particularly in Sydney, and Sydney is a global city. London, New York, Paris, Sydney, Australia. We Melburnians might not like it, but in fact that is the fact. And so global cities are expensive and will always be expensive. My concern is that I have come from an Australia, it's the 1960s. I often write about this in my columns, where people who were, had bugger all, could actually, through hard work, application and whatever, and just sticking at it, prosper in a reasonable sort of way. What I'm concerned about is that these gateway cities, certainly Sydney, less so Melbourne, increasingly Brisbane, I think, particularly with the Olympics, is moving out of reach. And you can see it in those maps that the yellow parts of Sydney, the battler areas, the bottom 30%, the social welfare and battler communities are being squeezed out. And it might be regional Australia or the other capital cities, in fact. So it changes the model of Australia. It changes the idea of Australia as a place where everyone, through hard work and effort, can get to somewhere. Now, that certainly does worry me, but again, do I think that's where we're heading? My logic of disconnect from whether you think this is right, wrong, good or bad, yeah, I do. I think that is where we're heading. And I think in Sydney in particular, it's not just two partners working hard and whatever, it's the bank of mum and dad. And there's 4 mums and dads in a standard relationship that can. I don't think the baby boomers are going to wait until they die to pass off their wealth. I think that is happening right now. In fact, people don't talk about it, but you kind of know it's happening.
And you talk about being a lifestyle nation.
Yep.
And so are you going to see, in that example there, where people will move to those regional areas to maintain life, as opposed to a lot of our immigrants who are coming in? They are hardworking, they are diligent, they want the Australian dream, and they want to share that with their relatives back home. How do you see that sort of playing out from a demography?
Well, I think, people who move to the regions, there's 2 regions in my world. One is the near regions, where you can, like Warragul. You can go to Warragul in, 45 minutes or so, or Morisset Corranbong on the north side of Sydney. And then there is the Then there's the remote regions. The remote regions have been losing people for the last 50 years or so, the red zone in Australia. So I think that certainly the lifestyle zone up and down the eastern seaboard and around the southwest part of Western Australia, around the Fleurieu Peninsula in Adelaide, will continue. Australians will want blur and blend, work with lifestyle. I think we will do that. The immigrant communities, particularly those that do not speak English, so not so much the Brits and the Irish and whatever, but the Indian community as an example, or the Nepalese or whatever, will remain connected into the capital cities. It's certainly for a generation or so. And it's that second generation of immigrants that may go out into the near regions as they prosper. Immigrants stay in the capital cities because there's people there that speak their language. They have tribal or familial linkages. There might be newspapers or churches or mosques or whatever it is that is important to them as well. And it's not until 30 years after the parents arrive that the next generation start to move out into the regions.
In 2001, you wrote the book The Big Shift. Mm-hmm. It had a profound impact on me at the time. You talked about three cultures, the bush culture, the burbs culture, and then the lifestyle culture, and then clearly your presentation today has shown how that's come to pass. Is there a fourth culture? Is that the near region sort of circling back?
Yeah, look, I do think so. So the bush, the beach, the burbs. And if you look at Australia in the 1880s, when I was writing my master's thesis on Melbourne in the 1880s, remember concepts like the swagman and going on the wallaby. It was a very romantic view, positive view of regional Australia, a place of opportunity. And the city was seen as being a dark place, crime-ridden, disease-ridden. You didn't have sewage at that time as well, so of course you want to get out into the regions. But that has flipped over the last century or so, and we have celebrated suburbia. The quarter-acre block, Darryl Kerrigan, we love it. We might, and Barry Humphries parodied it as well. But it's kind of a warm embrace of suburbia. And then the beach, the lifestyle up the coast, down the coast, is still very important. If there is a fourth culture, I would say, and this is evident over the last 30 years, it is apartmentia as opposed to suburbia. And there is a market for that apartmentia, and you can see it opening up from 23 to maybe 38. That would be the core. By 38, you have your kids, you've got your Lego, you're over it, and you want space, lifestyle space. And of course, it blurs and blends, but that's where I would see it. And if you look at apartmentia, of course, it's being led by Sydney and to a lesser extent Melbourne. Of course, you go to Perth, and it's very, very, very limited around the Swan River, around Cottesloe. Perth is probably the most suburban of our major capital cities in Australia. I spent some time in Dallas about 15 years ago. Actually loved it, couldn't believe the scale of it or whatever. And about a week later, I was in the southern suburbs of Perth, and I thought, it's exactly the same. Very vast, low density, well-to-do, even the cars on the road, the pickup trucks and in Perth, you could see mining wealth, Pilbara wealth in Perth at that time. I don't think Perth has bought in to that low density suburbia. We'll start to see that apartmentia, I think, blossom further. And of those maps that you were showing about the plans for railway-based developments, there's a market for that. I think the 20-somethings, you can see that coming forward. But it's not, to get the heartland to do that, to get Australians to live as families in that. You can't do it in New York. You might do it in Paris. Not when you've got an entire continent. I think it's a conflict. It's a problem that will become apparent.